definitely shaking up in Congress even before the upcoming midterm elections next year. Somewhere around 40 Congresspeople have announced that they will not be seeking re-election for their current seats in 2026, or that they will be retiring from Congress altogether. Some have ambitions to go on to other elected positions. Others have not said what their future plans entail. And perhaps nowhere is that more strongly felt than in the great deep red southern state of Texas. Already 9 Congresspeople from Texas have announced that they will be leaving their current positions. Of those, only 3 are Democrats. And the latest of the bunch to announce their departure from the House is Representative Jasmine Crockett. Crockett is only in her second term in Congress, but given the current state of the Texas district map, Crockett has been weighing her options for months. Recently, she said, "Serving my current District 30 is where I love to be perfectly honest." And other discussions came up as soon as it looked like they were going to decimate District 30. I still have some evaluations to make. And here's what she had to say back in August regarding the map.
This map does nothing but divide, distract, and depress. There is this idea that was put out there during his opening remarks that this does so much for Black folk. Well, let me tell you, as a Black person, it does not. Let me tell you that in this map, to be clear, y'all added 2 additional Anglo majority seats. Now, when we went through the 21 maps, you added 2 Anglo majority seats, and now you're adding 2 more Anglo majority seats, and then you've decided that you are going to pack and crack, and that is the language that I am going to use because that is the legal language. And I also just want to remind y'all really quickly that it does not look good when you take every economic engine out of my district and then tell me that I am supposed to sit here and be so happy because you added Black folk from a whole other community. When you want to talk about monoliths and whether or not they exist, this idea that you just take people and move them around. I have 200,000 people who were never in my district, and my district is 766,000. Playing move minorities around so that you can somehow claim that this is nothing but partisanship. The only way that you get here is by making sure that you trample upon the rights and the liberties and the voices of minorities.
She then goes on to discuss the specifics of the demographics in the state of Texas, but basically this place is far more diverse than the Republican majority here would like any of us to believe.
So let me give you a few facts about the state of Texas. The state of Texas only has 39% Anglos, yet somehow under this map, we are going to have somewhere near 60-something, almost 70% of these seats are going to be chosen by Anglos. If we were looking for fairness and to follow the Voting Rights Act, you'd have 15 Latino opportunity seats, 15 Anglo seats. You then have 4 African American opportunity seats. Then you'd have 2 Asian opportunity seats, and the other 2 seats would belong to coalitions because we are a majority minority state where over 60% of this population is people of color. So if you want to do what's fair and right under the Voting Rights Act, as well as if you say that this Fifth Circuit Court case matters and somehow changes everything, my question to you is, when are y'all gonna do y'all's maps? Because you did your maps in 2021 and then the case came out, and I haven't seen y'all talk about the fact that you're gonna redistrict the House and the Senate.
She pointed out that the new map dilutes the voting power of minorities, specifically in her Dallas area district, and she has had significant economic powerhouses removed from her district, like the Dallas Love Field Airport and the Dallas Area Medical Center. Once the new map was revealed, it was very clear that her district had been very heavily targeted, and it was clear that the likelihood of her getting reelected under the new map would be significantly less than it was before. So now she's announced that she won't even be trying to win this game that has been rigged against her. Instead, she's thrown her hat in the ring for Republican John Cornyn's Senate seat. And I know I've spoken about this at length before, so I will just give you all an abridged overview of where we are in Texas right now. Our two current senators are both Republican, Ted Cruz, who just won his re-election bid in 2024 against Democrat Colin Allred, and John Cornyn. Cornyn is being primaried by another prominent Republican, our legally embattled and ultra-MAGA Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Paxton is running against Cornyn because he says Cornyn isn't MAGA enough for Texas, even though Cornyn has voted with Trump nearly 100% of the time. Cornyn still has the facade of a more reserved conservative, the kind of MAGA that makes like the old guard boomer Republicans feel comfortable. He kind of looks like McCain, but also votes with Trump and supports all of Trump's policies. Cornyn doesn't wear a red hat, so he's more palatable to Republicans who don't identify themselves as being part of the stereotypical MAGA crowd. For these reasons, Texas Democrats actually want Paxton to win because he's more outwardly ridiculous and terrible. The hope is that he'll actually be easier to beat than Cornyn, and his defeat will then signal that Texans are finally tired of being governed by these weirdos. It's risky and it's very hopeful, especially considering that just last year, Texans re-elected Ted Cruz, the more outwardly and vocally MAGA senator. He's also an objectively bad senator. However, if Cornyn is the centrist and Paxton is the more radical candidate, we should know from past experience that voters don't resonate much with centrists. Maybe Cornyn would actually be easier to defeat than Paxton. There are a few other Republicans vying for the Senate seat, but the real race is between Cornyn and Paxton. But regardless of what happens on the Republican side, the Dems are having their own battle. Colin Allred, the former congressperson who lost his Senate bid to Cruz last year, announced that he would be trying again, this time for Cornyn's seat. He lost pretty badly to Ted Cruz, even though polling suggested the race would be much tighter than it turned out to be. However, Allred was very much a centrist Democratic candidate. He wasn't very exciting, he didn't have a very strong platform, and he's taken a ton of money from AIPAC. I was actually surprised to hear he was running for Senate a second time. Now, with Jasmine Crockett's district in jeopardy, she has announced that she's running for Senate. Her announcement prompted Allred to drop out of the race so as not to cannibalize voters. Let's be real though, no one's voting for Colin Allred over Jasmine Crockett. He would never have won that primary. But speaking of cannibalizing votes, there is already a very strong Democratic candidate for Senate in the Texas race, none other than Democrat James Tallarico. Tallarico, from the moment he entered the race a few months after Allred did, he was already expected to run away with the nomination. Things just got a little bit more complicated. Reporting from the Texas Tribune addressed the new tension Crockett's candidacy creates. Crockett is joining a field that already includes Austin State Representative James Tallarico, also known as a strong communicator and for his progressive brand of Christianity. But her path was made easier by fellow Dallasite Colin Allred's decision to exit the Senate race, which he announced early Monday morning. Both Allred, the 2024 Democratic nominee, and Tallarico had been running for months, with Allred launching his campaign in July, followed by Tallarico in September. The primary is March 3rd, but as Crockett began to move closer to a bid, she called both Allred and Tallarico to discuss her internal polling of the race and the prospect of forming a slate. That did not pan out. A similar effort to divide up the marquee statewide offices over the summer also failed, with too many candidates drawn to the Senate race over other contests such as governor and attorney general. So how is it actually looking between Crockett and Tallarico? Well, despite joining the field late, Crockett poses a clear threat to Tallarico, having outperformed him in public polling of the Democratic electorate this fall. She had $4.6 million in cash on hand at last count. Still, Tallarico remains competitive, saying, "We're building a movement in Texas, fueled by record-breaking grassroots fundraising and 10,000 volunteers who are putting in the work to defeat the billionaire, mega donors, and puppet politicians who have taken over our state. Our movement is rooted in unity over division, so we welcome Congresswoman Crockett into this race." So this is a strange problem for Texas Democrats to have, and it's cropping up not only at the state level, but also at the local level, at least here in Houston. And that problem is that we have too many very good, viable candidates to choose from. The nature of electoral politics is that we only get to have one, and once we get one, we inevitably lose the other. If we elect Tallarico to Senate, then Crockett is just out of Congress. Crockett certainly has a much more national profile as a representative in the House, also as a very outspoken, public-facing, and controversial representative in the House. Tallarico, for all of his recent national publicity and renown, he is still just a state-level official. It is a state race, though, and in a state race, that should be enough. But when you consider campaign fundraising and the like, the more people you can rally to your side and to your cause, even from the outside of your voting bloc, the better positioned you are to win. So much of American politics is just a game of strategy, of playing the odds, of determining which outcome is the most palatable and probable overall, even if that particular outcome sometimes means not necessarily going with the candidate you would actually prefer to win. Systems such as ranked choice voting, while not perfect, do help to minimize that gambling aspect of choosing political leaders, but as that has yet to be adopted at a wide scale throughout the country, here we are. Especially here in Texas, let's just say I'm not holding my breath for our state level officials to make voting more equitable and more accessible or more representative of the will of the people. But speaking of Crockett's attempts to assign different races to different Democrats, I would love to see viable candidates for governor and attorney general here. Those are hard races to penetrate though, so I would understand if candidates were hesitant to jump in. If Texas miraculously comes out of these Trump years with a Democratic senator though, that would certainly signify a significant shift that, in my opinion, is woefully overdue. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.